Hey, hello, it's Trevor Emdon here from wizardofwisdom.com. Trevor Emdon, NLP practitioner, author of many self-help programs and books. And the reason I'm giving you all that boring credential stuff is because I have something really important to talk about today, which is things like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and anxiety problems and that kind of thing, because I want to talk to you about getting rid of them, taking them away once and for all. And some years ago, I was working for Tony Robbins on one of his events when he was here in the UK. And uh, it was early in the year, something like February or March, I think. And there came a point in the proceedings where he chose a woman in the audience. Well, she volunteered after he'd asked the audience for volunteers to work with him, and he'd asked for people who had been traumatized, serious traumatic memories that were affecting their lives. That's what he asked for, not word for word, but that's what they were. And so this woman stood up, and you have to understand there are thousands of people in the room. I'm somewhere in the dark at the back, and we can all see in close up because there are big, like closed circuit TV screens. And so this woman, who told us she was 32 years of age, he asked her what she wanted to work on, and she began immediately to weep. And through her tears, she explained that 16 years before, she'd been the victim of a serious sexual assault. And that had deeply affected her life. Now, other parts of her life were working perfectly well. She had a job, and she had various things going on in her life that were, from the outside, you wouldn't have been able to tell that anything was wrong. But she felt she couldn't have an intimate relationship with men or man. She was frightened all the time, and so on. And he worked with her for, I'm going to say 3 minutes. It might have been 6 or 7 or 8. I wasn't timing it, but it was minutes. And by the end of the piece of work that they did together, she, along with the rest of us, were laughing. And he said to her, but I thought something really important happened to you when you were 16. And she said, it doesn't seem to matter anymore. Now, understand this, she hadn't forgotten. It just neutralized the emotional charge. That's what effectively that piece of work did. Now, that was wonderful to witness, but there is a sequel to this story. There's an epilogue, because many months later, towards the end of the year, fall, autumn, sometime October, I think it was, I was on a plane flying to Hawaii to be on another Tony Robbins event. And Hawaii is a long way from the UK. So it was a long flight. We had a long time on the plane. And there were quite a lot of us on that plane who were going to that event. And about 3 seats away from me was this woman, whom, of course, I immediately recognized, but she had no idea who I was because she'd been on this big screen and I was just somewhere in the room, thousands of people there. But over the course of the journey, people started to talk about what was coming and other Tony Robbins events that they'd done, and she mentioned that she'd been at this particular event in the UK, which gave me the opening to say, excuse me, but I was there too, and I remember the piece of work that you did there. And she said, everybody remembers the piece of work I did there. And I said, well, I have a question. Would you mind if I asked you? And she said, go ahead. And she had a guy sitting next to her who hadn't spoken up to this point. And I said, well, I want to know, because the work was really fast, were the effects permanent? And she said, oh, absolutely, of course. I wouldn't be on this plane if that wasn't the case. This is my partner, my boyfriend, I think fiancé, and absolutely, it changed my life completely. Now, understand, that woman had been traumatized for 16 years, which at that time was half her life, by that event, and in minutes was able to erase it. Now, you might be saying, well, that's all very well, but this is Tony Robbins. Yeah, Tony Robbins really mastered that. But you know what? He's not the only master of NLP or those kinds of techniques out there. And what I thought about was, wouldn't it be great if you could just do that for yourself? You don't have to wait until you're at a Tony Robbins event, pay whatever the ticket price is, thousands probably, to be there and hope that you're the one that gets picked. If you could just do that for yourself. And so I have a program that achieves that. And you don't have to go to a Tony Robbins event. Now, I'm not Tony Robbins, but I do understand NLP, and I understand this. And this is why it works, okay? And it doesn't matter whether it's PTSD, whether whether the diagnosis is some kind of anxiety disorder or whatever. Because what's at the bottom of all of this is thought patterns. Now, you will notice, for example, that woman, she had a job, she had a life, she was well dressed, she was well educated. She wasn't someone whose entire life had been wrecked. She probably felt that inside, but actually in most ways, she was functioning perfectly well. Now, what that tells you, and I'm guessing if you have that kind of something that's traumatized you in your history, most of the time, probably most people don't even know that that's happened to you. Most of the time, you probably function perfectly well too. And that's because those thoughts are not there all the time. When they come, when something triggers them, you probably freeze. She probably did. A relationship? No way. In her case, it might have been that, right? But it only is triggered by certain things. So here's my point about that. These are patterns that recur in the same way that clouds can obscure the sun. Now, even in the deepest, darkest midst of a thunderstorm, you and I both know the sun is coming back. These are clouds. This is rain. This is thunder, lightning, whatever. But the sun is coming back. It's not gone away. And that's the core of this, because you are not broken. Beneath the storm clouds of limiting thought patterns and thoughts that hurt you is happiness and peace of mind. It's always been there. We were all born with that. It hasn't gone away. And it's not like we have to somehow mend you. You just need to know how to clear the clouds. That's all it is. And when you can neutralize the emotional charge in those clouds of thinking, they evaporate. They just evaporate, and the blue sky of a sunny day, my metaphor, will return to you immediately and permanently. It can't not do. It can't fail, right? So I'm telling you that I have put together a program that enables you to do that for yourself. So if you click the link below, you'll be taken to a page that tells you about it. Now, I know two things. Several things. One, people will be like, "Oh, come on, seriously? This takes years and years and years to fix, and some people never get fixed." Well, that's a lot of the prevailing thinking is that. I've personally seen this work. I've personally used this process that I'm describing on myself and on hundreds and hundreds of people. Everything from road traffic accidents to loss of people in deathbed events, all kinds of things that have traumatized people. Can't go into it all, but all kinds of things that whatever it is, if something haunts you or limits you from the past, and it has to be from the past, can't be from the future, but it's eating up your future, it's eroding it. So this technique deals with that. It neutralizes the charge, the emotional charge, and then you're free. It's not wiping your memory. It's right, and that's the thing to understand. The event's over. Your memory of the event is what you're still hurting yourself with, and I know you can't help it. Right? So I know the prevailing thinking says this takes years and years of therapy and undoing it, and I'm saying I think There's a quicker way. And I know that might draw some controversy, but I'm here to help. And the other thing I know is that, well, a couple of things. One is people say, yeah, but what happened to me is not going to work for what happened to me. And all I can say to that is I have yet to find an exception. And I've worked with a lot of different people. And I don't care whether you've been in combat. I don't care if you had some kind of abuse in your history, whatever. I'm saying it's just clouds. And once you neutralize their effect, the sun will come out. Whatever. Doesn't matter what happened to you. Doesn't matter how long ago it was. Doesn't matter how long it lasted. Right? If your future is being eroded by thoughts from the past, this will help. And the other thing people will say is, oh, he's selling something. Well, you know what? Tony Robbins was selling something. I'm not going to apologize for that. What I'm selling here is what I do. It's a skill that I have that can help. And I'm selling it really, 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 really cheap. If you want to buy a Tony Robbins ticket, be my guest. You'll have a great, great time. He changed my life. He certainly changed that lady's life. And that's fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I would recommend that you do. But if you want a self-help program that will take you maybe an hour to do, maybe a couple of hours to read through, and 2 or 3 hours from now, you could be living a life that's totally, totally different. So there's a link below. Go and see for yourself. It's not going to, if you click the link, nothing bad will happen. It won't force you to pay money. It's just a description of what's inside the program. It's called Healing the Painful Past. So I'm Trevor Emdon. I hope that helps. If you have questions, post them. If you're watching this on YouTube, post them in the comments below. I do check in and I do respond. So thanks for watching. And if that helps, you're very, very welcome.